I accidentally skipped the first line of this. It's Garion saying, "Yet everything becomes another place becomes a desolate wasteland in the end. Please spare me. I did everything you told me to." Don't you get any impression when the place you belong to has been reduced to ashes and dust? Since childhood, scenery such as a myriad of stars illuminating the sky or the sun's radiant light beating down upon the earth couldn't impress me that one bit. This, however, gives me a thrill that makes me thirst for more. But it's still not enough. My thirst has not been quenched just yet. Why are you trembling so much? Where'd the guts to betray your very own nest go? Please, let me go now. You got everything you wanted. The plan wasn't perfect by any means, but it wasn't all that bad either. Thanks to those that placed their trust in you, we get to have this magnificent view. Trust is one of my favorite weapons, you see. It leaves a great wound, no? The sweepers will arrive soon. Wherever there is trash, they'll always be on time to gather it up. It's a symbiotic relationship, so to speak. We're too busy to take care of all the dregs. No, please. Ah yes, that face. Anything but the sweepers, please. That vivid expression on your face is the testament to life. My two best companions, silence and the metallic scent of black tea. Wouldn't you agree? Now, the next stop is that place. It's rather displeasing that I have to depend on the information from some orange-haired girl. But the weak and the vulnerable tend to yield greatly valuable information. What kind of faces will show me what it means to be alive next? The only things that could excite me were the dying and the crumbling. Only the sound of their last breath, and the expressions they made while they clung to their fading life could satisfy me. I recognized a long time ago that you and I are no different. We are the mutants that this epoch has created. No, let's say that we are a new generation of humanity, fit better than everyone else to live through this age. That is why you could have planned all this. However, no matter what you achieve here, the world will not change at all. The wings on the rise, the organizations from the back streets, the creatures in the outskirts, the abyss within the ruins, arbiters like me, the claws in the eye, you'll never have a chance against them alone. But simply idling here won't change the world either. If there are no more places to run to, hide in or rest, then I will witness everything you have to do with my own eyes. I shall not close my eyes just because my eyelids are heavy, nor shall I turn away just because the sight is painful. Simply proceed like you always have, then you may just triumph. We have faced the fear, breaking the cycle, 80% seed of light, last Zephyriah left to suppress his Hokma. The time is upon you. It's time to complete the final piece of the puzzle you have been missing. May you have the best of luck on the last leg of your journey. Saying something like, "I hope you will finally be happy," or that some of the leftover pain can be relieved now, have long become empty words. There are several more things I would like to say, but let me sum them up into one sentence. I wish you success this time. I enjoyed being with you for not only these 45 days, but also the moments you don't remember. Well, there's just one last Zephyriah you need to meet. He holds in his hands a warmth that looks so comforting, but he can shatter people's hearts like they're nothing. I have finished casting the rolls for the upper and middle layer Sephiroth. It's likely that this will not be the last time I do so. I may have to tell them again what I have already instructed countless times. However, you two will be different. You clearly understand why this facility exists, and what your missions are. I expect that you will not exhaust me as the ones above do. Just keep this in mind. I will not come down here to the lower layer unless the circumstances require me so. That does not mean I will simply watch and do nothing, but I will not interfere for the most part. I hope we never have to face each other from now on. It would only lead to the both of us suffering. Angela was the best artificial intelligence I had ever known, and you were the best architect that I was graced to meet. Back then, you simply could not let Carmen go. You were so desperate to keep Carmen on your side that you locked her in a cryostasis pod in an attempt to preserve her body at the very least. But during all this, you were perfectly aware that Carmen's body had become nothing but a shell. Our faces were full of grief, yet we still ransacked her body and dismembered her core. In fact, I was rather relieved when you began to create Angela. You were wholeheartedly immersed in something, just like you used to be. That day, when she opened her eyes for the first time. I remember you were just standing through the laboratory's glass, not seeing setting a single foot inside. You might have thought that you noticed me right away. However, I witnessed you standing there for a long time before you realized I was there. What inner conflict made you hesitate so? What did you think after seeing that piece of humanoid machinery, who did not display the warm smiles and gentle laughter Carmen had so naturally? I told you in so many words that no matter how many AIs such as Angela you create, none of them will ever be Carmen. Now poor Angela is merely assigned to direct us from a distance as we go through the motions of the play. If there is one thing I may have mistaken myself over, it is that I had thought you had overcome everything. The truth is that you never have. And now it's just 10 or more employees whose justice is 100 or higher. I'm just going to be doing this mission off screen because I have to go rewind to day 41 to complete the game without going back to day 1. Because there just isn't enough time to do Hokma suppression before going to day 46, which puts us in a series of events that I cannot do suppressions during. So now that we finished Binah's synchronization, we no longer lose any ego when an employee dies. This is pretty useful, but it's a bit far into the game for us to be worrying about that. There's really only like a couple more times that I have the risk of a lot of employees dying, and I'm probably just going to reset if that happens, except for day 49, but it's nice to have, I guess. I kind of wish I had it before her suppression, I'm going to be honest. Anyway, welcome back to the Lobotomy Corporation. I'm going to be advancing back to day 45 off screen now, and also finishing Hokma cutscenes. There will be an awkward Hokma cutscene, and then we'll be into the real day. Wowie zowie. DO4108, ease yourself, do you not have needed the blessing? This is a really annoying, wah. TO168, we're just going to go in the dice and HE, and then Mountain of Smiling Bodies, you've seen this before. I'm probably going to re-roll this, unless it rolls Mountain. Actually, I probably re-roll see if it does roll Mountain. I'm just going to re-roll this. I'm just actually going to re-roll it right now, I'm not going to bother rolling the dice. TO446 is memory scan of the Warm Hug, this is an HE. O173, all that remains is the Hollow Pride of Weather Night, this is a really good wah. O620, and the many shells cried out one word, manager. This is another Aleph. I think it's popped up in the list before several times, but more importantly, it's an Aleph, so it has Aleph level gear, and that is always nice. It would have been a lot nicer had we done it prior to Gebra suppression, because it would have made Phase 3 significantly less annoying, because, I mean, it's not the best thing for Phase 3, but it would just had a hit that was not black or pale in a left class, which is something we were missing completely. I forgot to load random.org before this, so I'm kind of talking so long. I'm very unprofessional. For what it's worth, I think this is probably one of the best walls up there with Judgment Bird, by the way. That's why I would be not upset if it landed on this. P. And so we've got another 3 choices versus our last tool. TO984 is under operation inside the machine defense was healthy and arrested again. TO977 excessive aspiration beyond bring about unwanted frenzy. TO909. Do you remember this melody the professor used to play the song when students were sleepy? Happy birthday. We've seen all of these before. They're all range from Zane to Teth, I believe, and none of them are particularly interesting. And we've rolled a 1, meaning we're taking this. And I believe this is the one we took last time, which we rewound and never explained. So cool, I guess. So we have 173, all that remains is the Hollow Pride of a Weathered Night. This is a really good wall, as I've said earlier. Amount of Smiling Bodies, you've seen this before, in TO450. If you feel abdominal pain and tickling sensation in the neck, the best thing you can do now is look at the great blue sky you never see again. This is another wall, and it is alright. If I roll a 1 or a 3, I will not re-roll, otherwise I will, because we've seen the mountain as much as I like it, and it's way more annoying to deal with than I roll a 2. Okay. 466 is a wall, that's a really good weapon. 173 we just saw, and 620 is an Aleph. I'd be fine with any of these. And roll a 2, so I'll finally take this. I'll do my best. I advise you not be so languid. Is it okay if I do this? Hey, don't worry too much about it. You won't find a professional like me often. My greetings, A. The moments I have just made you witness are no longer merely scenes of the past. They could be from the present or even from the future. There are people who once loved you, and there are employees who think that they are happy here. There is also Angela, a cold imitation of Carmen. Is this not the heaven that has burrowed into your mind, the place you have been yearning for? In this place, you are no less mighty than God. Even death finds its no meaning here. So I plead with you, will you not be satisfied already? We are so desperately continuing to exist, even if it means living like we are now. What right do you have to turn everything to ash? Furthermore, it is clear that this story has no need for an end. Think about it. All this work that you have done, is it truly a consequence of your own choices? You were never ready. You were not prepared to accept her death, so you created a being wholly shrouded in a sense of loss. And now you are just struggling to move forward, blindly fumbling along the obscure trails of your past deeds. Throughout this entire process, you were never sincerely willing to do what you did. So please, I beg you to go back now. I will not turn back. Look at you. You are proving me right. You're not at all honest with yourself, even with the gravest of choices you must make. Even if I were to send you away, you'll likely return to me after having yet another fresh start. It is an uncontrollable law of this place that we must follow. This whole facility has become one giant ever-running clockwork. The clock never stops ticking. It never rests, it never rushes, it is not set to follow any specific person. It simply walks forever, maintaining the same pace it always has. And now, it is time for you to leave. I won't leave. You are a lost traveler without a compass or a map. It is natural to feel fear when one is subject to the whims of the air and sea. However, there is no need for you to fear the counting of the clock anymore. I shall always welcome you. I will always console you. You never were ready. I stand my ground. You have not changed your decision in the end. It had seemed that tomorrow would have come as it always does, but it has not. The hour of silent waiting has long since ended. When I no longer feared the impending night, I chose to love this place. But if you still wish to break this egg at all costs, I shall become its sentinel, and I will reap you. How can this still be considered following her will? This is nothing but a seed of calamity, drenched in sin. Oh, by the wings, your mind has been soaked with grief, even more severely than I thought. Please, why can't you just stop now? You and I, we tried our best. With your career and wealth, you'll be able to live the rest of your life in a nest with no problem whatsoever. So please, I urge you, stop here. Stop before you cross the line. I will not stop. No one remained by my side. With everyone's sacrifice, I came this far and reached the ranks of the wings, but there was nobody left to celebrate the moment with. The silence was a signal to start my task for everyone. We lost something in us, every single day. We used inhumane methods to extract information from the woman we captured from the head. We passed out plans to AIs that haven't even been named yet. It ached, no, it wounded the heart of the man who had always been with me. The sound of the waves were so far away, and there was no time left to stay. I lost the last man who stood by me. It was a tragedy, but I didn't hide it. The ones who had left early on likely didn't need me anymore, but I needed them in those final moments. To bring back those who had forsaken the embrace of the earth, to hide and lock away the seed of secret. I was the only one who remained. I wanted to be forgotten like a mirage. Welcome back to Lobotomy Corporation. We're finishing the last core suppression here with Hokma. I want us to reassign everyone to a random place, basically. Because I think we should pretty much be fine wherever they are. It's a bit tricky of a suppression, but we should be able to handle it. I mean, hopefully. I've done it before, and also we have like a pretty effective team. Hired a few more people up here, spent the days I cut through grinding up their stats, so pretty much everyone's at the stat cap for everything. Or very close to it. So our facility is looking pretty good. With that, let's start the suppression. Happy Teddy Bear is an HE level abnormality that does white damage. It prefers attachment work and also responds decently well to insight and repression. Its damage type and favored works make it similar to Warm-Hearted Woodsman. It has no Quilthoth counter. Instead, if an employee works on it 2 times in a row, they die. That's it. That's its gimmick. As long as you're careful to alternate employees, you'll be perfectly fine working with Happy Teddy Bear. It's very benign. It cannot breach or anything. Its weapon is not great, and it has a very short range, which is also not great. It has a medium amount of red damage for its tier. And suit is also not great. It only resists red and nothing else. Although red resist is the most important for HE suits, I would still prefer it to not have like neutral towards both white and black, and still be weak towards pale, because everything at HE and below is weak to pale. Overall, Happy Teddy Bear is pretty mediocre, but it's still arguably better than Warm-Hearted Woodsman, the other white damage doing, preferring Temperance abnormality. That still means there are better Temperance abnormalities in HE tier, and I'd rather have something like Snow Queen that prefers Insight and does white damage, but I mean, it exists. You Must Be Happy is a Zayn tier tool. When you send someone to use it, they will stand in the center of the platform. The screen will alternate between yes and no while they're on the platform, speeding up over time. Once you cancel the work, they will be released from the platform. If it was on yes when they were released, they get a buff to all their stats. If it was on no, they get a debuff to all of their stats. If an agent uses this more than 4 times in the same day, they will die. If they have more than 200 stats total at the end of the day, so if they get plus 50 to everything and you don't remove it, then they will also die. It also stops if you try to pause the game. It's very helpful for things like HOD suppression that lower your stats. It's also very helpful to use Alephs for training, because the stat-gated Alephs, using a You Must Be Happy allows you to work on them with employees who would not normally meet the stat requirements. And this allows you to actually use them as training, because most of the time the stats they're good at training are the stats that require you to be at level 5 to even work on them in the first place. It's pretty nice, because Alephs have pretty good training rates. You Must Be Happy continues the Zayn tool trend of being way more useful than the rest of the tools, even if it's just for one thing, like Old Faith and Promise, and I don't really know why most of the Zayn tools are that good. And so we finally start Hokma's suppression. It's what I consider the hardest core suppression. Binah's is second, by the way. Just because of its 2 very punishing gimmicks. Its first is that you cannot pause. If you pause, someone's HP or SP will be set to 0, and we're trying to avoid death. I mean, we've had a total of 1 that we've kept, Kim Dairy, but other than that, we've been doing a pretty good job at it. So we have to be very careful when we're firing execution bullets. The day goes very long. It goes to the, I believe, to meltdown level 10 is the last one you have to do meltdowns during. So technically we went to 11, I believe. Again, I'm not 100% on this, because I don't really pay attention to the actual level. I just kind of notice it stops eventually. But when a day goes long, you want to wipe out all of the clerks if you have any clerks' rights abnormalities. They're not really that big of a threat if they escape, but I can't pause to deal with them, and I am significantly worse in combat if I cannot pause. It makes it a lot harder to keep track of HP, and also keep track of multiple fights going on at the same time. And if abnormalities break out, there will probably be multiple fights going on at the same time, because they have Little Red Riding Hood, a mercenary, who breaches when other abnormalities breach. Other than that, we're just trying to make it through the day. It's very important when you're firing execution bullets right now, because you can't pause to try not to do it in rooms that your employees are standing in, just because you could very easily accidentally shoot your employees and either just accept the death or restart the entire day. The second gimmick is the reason why I'm playing this day at ×1 speed. You cannot adjust the speed of the day. Eventually it'll speed up past ×1, but you can't make it slow down past the sped up speed. It's probably the dumbest way of explaining that, but essentially we can't control the speed of the game is being played at, which is kind of annoying because I prefer the game to be on ×2 speed at most of the time. Other than that, it's just a fairly basic suppression. By fairly basic, I mean not really basic at all, because they're both incredibly influential in the way that you have to approach the day. Meltdowns can occur anywhere, but there's less of them than there would be if you did not clear any suppressions. I believe there's also less than there were during Tifereth suppression, although I wasn't really paying much attention during Tifereth, so I'm not sure. Actually, it's almost certainly less because it's like 4 at the end of the day. I don't know why I said I believe. You can't pause to look for meltdowns, so you just have to do it in the middle of a gameplay. Which does make it a bit harder. The main threat of this day is the ordeals, not the abnormalities you're dealing with, unless you have something really nasty that we haven't seen yet. But the ordeals, even the dawns, can mess you up if you're not prepared for them. Solely because you can't pause. But the dawns, I mean exclusively Violet and Crimson Dawn can be a threat in this day, because they can allow other abnormalities to breach. Violet less so than Crimson, because Crimson's a bit better at it, but we're not seeing either of those, so the Dawn's not really that big of a deal. If we were seeing Crimson or Violet, I would have had to approach this slightly differently. I would have stationed employees in all the hallways where high-risk abnormalities are. These are things like Nameless Fetus, Censored, probably Burrowing Heaven, just because I'm not really paying much attention to it. Just stuff like that. Actually, it almost certainly had someone in the records hallway, because there's literally no one in the records right now. Because you can't station employees when departments are currently undergoing meltdown, which is why all the records employees have to be manually moved, as you've probably noticed. It has been happening, and I've probably drawn them to do it at one point or another. This is just being careful not to shoot the actual employees in the main room. Trying to wipe out as many clerks as possible, because this is the first major event that will cause clerk loss, the Dawn. We can't respond to Dawns as quickly as we normally would be able to, because we cannot pause, so there will be dead clerks. We couldn't clear them all out before this. The last group of clerks we're going to clear out as normal is Central Command, just because Central Command's clerks are the most useful. We're still going to kill all of them in the end, but we're going to keep them alive longer than the rest. It doesn't really matter that much which abnormalities you work on, because even if you work on HEs and Teths and Zayans, you probably still have enough energy to finish the day by the end of it. This day runs long. It's longer than Tifereth's, and you can't pause during any of it. I mean, if you have nothing that's like, if you don't have any of the 2 abnormalities that have their own timer, you could just leave the game running if you're ready to break, but we currently have none of those abnormalities. One of them is really good though, so you want it. The other one is awful, so you don't want it. And we'll cover them eventually. I doubt we'll see them in the main Let's Play by this point. Well, actually, one of them I know I won't see in the main Let's Play at this point, because it's a tool, and we've picked our last tool. I've been trying to have a more fragile employee handle the push into next mountain level when there's no ordeal coming in. But I always try to do that, so it's not really a special thing for this suppression. It's really annoying having to do this without being able to pause, but that's the entire point of the suppression. Not really dealing with the records ones yet, just because I'm waiting for them to leave. And then I changed my mind because they took too long in welfare and they tunneled out, so now we sent welfare down to deal with the records. Worms. Disciplinary, as is normal, because they have a ridiculously powerful Twilight, is the first one to finish by far. Well, probably not the first one to finish, because they're also the last ones to fight, but they finished in like 2 seconds, so they're the fastest to finish by far. It's probably a more accurate way of phrasing that. Indigo's coming up. We've seen Indigo before. It's not really that bad. None of the Noons are as bad as Crimson Dawn, in my opinion, during the suppression. Crimson Noon comes close, though, but it's ultimately only 3 Crimson Dawns, while Crimson Dawn would be like 9 Crimson Dawns. Crimson Noon kind of falls off hard later on in the game. It's not really a threat to any of our employees by this point. With that, the Dawn goes down. None of the Noons are really a threat to our employees at this point. We've dealt with Green Noon pretty easily several times now. Indigo's popped up the least, but we've seen Indigo before in the Let's Play. It's the Sweepers. They're basically Green Noon, but for black damage, and they heal by destroying corpses. They also damage themselves when they attack because of a glitch. They're meant to regenerate a little bit of HP every time they attack, but they convert the damage into a negative number and then add the damage to their HP, because it's trying to make them heal 2 different times in the code. It just makes them hurt themselves. It's a classic Project Moon moment. Wiping out welfare now. I kind of like to keep the welfare clerks alive for a bit because they give you like 3 to 4 extra bullets, I think, but it's ultimately not that big of a deal. Most of the clerks' benefits are not really that useful. Even Central Commands isn't really that great, it's just an extra 10 seconds. Really the best benefit of all is extraction, but we have no new abnormalities because I extracted all of the gear for Happy Teddy Bear off camera, so we don't have to worry about him this day. And I'm not working with Teddy Bear at all on this day because throwing a memory game into no pause stressful situation is enough for me. It's too much for me, thanks. Even if it's a pretty simple memory game. I mean, I only have 2 employees down there. It'd be a lot easier if I had 3 and I could just alternate through a list, but really, I don't think you need more than 2 in a department most of the time. 3 is a good number, is a better number though. 3 is a nice, safer choice. That's why I've been trying to stick to 3 per department. And the only group that regularly overtakes that is training, just because training is a good spot to throw newbies. Although we're pretty much done with newbies now. And we only have 1 more department anyway. Because we have pretty much entered the endgame at this point. Not officially yet, but that'll change tomorrow. This is pretty much the precursor to endgame content, which I mean, it's the hardest suppression, so I think it was a good spot to throw it personally this day. Anyway, we're about to enter Indigo Noon, which is not really that big of a deal. We've gotten pretty lucky with the ordeal so far. Mostly just because we didn't see Crimson Dawn. I really don't like dealing with Crimson Dawn during the suppression. First time I did this, I kept having to deal with Crimson Dawn and Violet Midnight, which are like my 2 least favorite things to deal with during this. None of the Dusks are super bad either in this. I mean, the Dusks are harder than the Noons in that they can still pose a threat if you're not careful, but I think we're past the Dusks being a real threat to our facility as long as we play intelligently. Although, notably, the one Dusk that is probably the least threat to anyone is the one that killed Kim Dayre, so maybe I should be too overconfident. Looking at people's black resist before I figure out who to send in, because most the people wearing red fragile armor are not really liabilities here because they heart resist black. Morty is weak to black, so he ends up working on today's Shadowlook. And for some reason, most of the sweepers spawned in the upper layer. I don't really get what that's about. But the sweepers are not a massive deal. They just do things. I am kind of playing extra cautious as I'm firing healing bullets early, or I could have been firing black shields, but I don't know. I tend to go for healing over shields even though it's less efficient. And then some more sweepers spawned at disciplinary. But sweepers are not really that big of a deal, like I was saying. So it doesn't really matter if I'm playing perfectly right now. They don't really stand a chance to a facility almost entirely equipped in wall gear because they are an HE level threat. And that's pretty much it. That's what they are to me now. I think the sweepers do tend to show up a bit late compared to most of the noons, and that you don't really get to see what they can do before you have like the ability to handle them really easily, or at least you should by day 26, which is the first day they can show up. I mean, Green Noon's kind of a threat because it shows up for the first time on day 11, but 26 is a lot further in the game than 11. Because it is a much bigger number. That is my words of wisdom. Anyway, we're gonna cut ahead a bit because we've seen all the early game stuff and we've discussed the mechanics of the suppression at depth. As long as you can anticipate what's about to pop up, this isn't that big of a deal though. Anyway, we've hit the late game of the suppression now. You can see Hokma doing an epic dance. We're preparing for Crimson Dawn now. To prepare for the Crimson Dusk. To prepare for the Crimson Dawns that it spawned, I moved a lot of people into hallways to stand near things. B is in the hallway in records. This is all to make sure that when Crimson Dawns teleport, they can react they'll be able to react. They'll automatically aggro to Crimson Dawns if they spawn in the hallway they're in, and they'll kill them. Anyone can solo Crimson Dawn by this point, hopefully. So it doesn't really matter who I send, as long as I have someone standing in the hallway. Crimson Dusk wasn't really that big of a deal. I'm just trying to make sure I have employees on it. Eke is fighting that one, and Marie's walking up to it. And then we have Central Command and Welfare fighting the other one. And Hokma is still doing his dance. This is the point in the day where it begins to accelerate, by the way. When Hokma does this little dance and the screen starts turning grayer and grayer. You can notice that we're on the 1.5 times speed marker. I don't know if we're exactly at 1.5 times speed. I think by the end of the day it's moving at 2.3 speed, which is faster than you're normally able to go. I'm not entirely sure, though. I believe it starts, the first level is 1.3 times speed, so it might be 1.3, 1.6, 1.9, 2.3, I don't know. Some Dawns spawned in records, but they really cannot live up to a left tier weapon. And that's not even a good one for damage, it's a good one for defense. The Dawns are not really a physical threat, and they would not be a threat at all if we could pause. They're more of a threat of, this is actually what ended my first day, the Crimson Dusk exactly. They're a threat of, if you're not paying attention, one can spawn a Nameless Fetus's corridor and screw you over. Because all of the clerks are already dead, so there's no way that we will succeed. And I mean, theoretically I could beat the day with Nameless Fetus constantly going off, but it also mean the little red would constantly be breaking out, because we have two abnormalities in safety. I don't know, I gave up when Nameless Fetus burst loose. I might have been able to do it, I chose not to. That was my only failed attempt, by the way. This is my second try and my successful attempt of the day. Green Midnight is the last midnight we haven't seen yet. It's also the easiest midnight by far. As long as you have good equipment, it won't be a threat at all, and we have good enough equipment, barely. The only thing that's important to do is make sure you know who has a very short-range weapon in your facility. Our very short-range weapons are Little Red Riding Hood Mercenary's weapon, which Clud and Eke have, and the Wolf Claw, which Yeti and Among Us have. So I need to... Right now I'm trying to figure out who has those weapons, and I'm bringing them to that elevator, so I won't grab them when I grab the rest of the facility later on to fight it. It's really not important where you put them, just make sure they're separated from the main fighting force, because they will die if you're not careful. It's kind of funny how the Green Ordeals are the hardest until the Green Midnight, which is by far the easiest, though. Over there, like, tier level. I mean, I think the Green Noon is harder than some of the Dusks, I'm going to be honest. Just for the point of the game it's in. Anyway, it's about time to spawn in that Green Noon, so having the entire facility gather up into a different elevator. Elevators are really good for managing your troops in larger conflicts. As you've probably noticed by this point, I tend to use them a lot. You also want to engage a lot of stuff on the first floor just because it has the best layout for fighting, in my opinion. Like, well, records and extraction are kind of just long hallways that aren't really, it's difficult to get people set up in a proper formation, aka a big ball of murder. because the elevator's kind of far away. Same problem with middle layer. Upper layer though, there's lots of elevators in good spots. That's why I engaged Amber Midnight here. But also, not really why I'm engaging Green Midnight here, because it always spawns in exactly that position in information. Its two lasers move like the hands of a clock. It has an hour hand that moves very slowly and a minute hand that moves more quickly. And they do a lot of black damage to anyone caught in them. This is the reason why I separated the very short range employees, because they'd be standing so close that they would die. Yeah. It kind of sucks. That's why I don't really like very short range weapons at all. But other than that, Green Midnight is not really a threat at all. The black shield keeps breaking, but that's because the new one's being applied, because we have two of that weapon. So, yeah. That was Green Midnight, and that was the last midnight we hadn't seen yet. It wasn't really missing much, but I'm glad we've seen all three. Every single time we had to run into Midnight, we ran into a different one. That's nice. Wish we didn't run into Violet Midnight first, though. Maybe we ran into it second. I don't really remember. I just remember we ran into it, and I don't like running into it. I hate Violet Midnight. But that is the last time we'll have to see a Midnight in the entire game. And we saw the last Midnight we had to see. And with the Green Midnight dead, the main threat of the day is gone. All we have to do with now is the meltdowns. Worm-Hearted Woodsman could melt down, but like we can just ignore it. This isn't Binah's where we have to work the meltdown. This is why I had to hire a specialist employee for Binah's suppression, but not for this. Because there's no reason to work its meltdown if you don't have to. We'll lose like 50 energy, but that's like 2 works by this point in the game. 2 works is something like an LF, but 3 works is the other thing. It's not really that big of a deal, even this late into a day. Anyway, that's Hokma down. And that's Hokma down. The stats the stats per day are not really that important anymore, but here they are for posterity's sake. Pretty much everyone got it some work, so overall, pretty much everyone got some stats. Wait, but I thought we already had an abnormality queue. Does this mean that the legendary last department is another 2 abnormality department? Yes. Yes, it does. These can be... Normally the day rules make you more likely to get more dangerous abnormalities as the days go on. And this, it's an even chance for any type of abnormality to show up. So it can either... Like, on certain days it's impossible for Zayans, and on the early days it's impossible for Alefs and Waz and HEs. And this day, anything can show up no matter what. FO270, what happens to the black swan makes up dream of a white swan. This is a wall that we haven't seen yet. O7103, however, the world is simply more than simply warmth and light. I think this is a wall. I'm not entirely sure. And 0466 is a wall that I want because it is good. By good, I mean it has a good weapon, but I mean the thing that I wanted its weapon for, we have done already. It was Apocalypse Bird. I mean, it'd still be nice to have, I guess. And we rolled it, so cool. And now it is time for teddy bear lore. An abnormality that resembles a large, raggedy teddy bear. It's missing some fur and only has one eye. The old ribbon around its neck hints that it may have received much affection from its previous owner. There's a name on the ribbon, but it's too tattered to be discernible. It seems to know that it has been abandoned and looks dejected. I was in the night patrol. I didn't feel the need to pay attention to Happy Teddy Bear since it was harmless for the most part. I just decided to take me to check on it. Teddy was hugging someone tightly. I thought it was Redacted, the employee who was in charge of Teddy for a while, working late. But something was odd. I entered the unit and called Redacted's name, but they didn't answer. I immediately pressed the emergency button to call in reinforcement. Turns out, Redacted had been in a coma for 8 hours. They were in Teddy's arms the whole time. Remember what was written in the employee manual? Do not have personal feelings towards abnormalities. At first, I didn't get what that was supposed to mean. Does it even make sense to develop any emotion towards these monsters in the first place? It's okay, they are monsters. Between the two of us, we can call them that. Happy Teddy Bear was the second abnormality you took charge of. I guess you must have thought that not all abnormalities are monsters after seeing it. The figure of an old abandoned teddy bear may have brought up old memories of yours. Teddy seemed to like your hugs. Yeah, it actually produced more energy when you were around. In no time, they put you in charge of Teddy. You probably felt some kind of responsibility for it, right? I started getting worried as you visited Teddy's unit more and more often. It felt as though you were visiting an orphanage for volunteer work. It seems Teddy saw you as its new owner. Maybe you've been happy to hear that, but you see, Teddy never wanted to be separate from its owner ever again. You probably always promised that you would return, but you couldn't understand. I heard that you miraculously survived, and that they spent an hour trying to separate you from Teddy's embrace. Though the others may forget about you, I will always remember you. May there be a miracle. What a beautiful story.